Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So you may have noticed that over the last couple months, I have been sparsely putting out content. I haven't been putting out as much content as I used to do before November of last year, before a whole family debacle. And that was for good reason. I had, at the time, purchased Smallville, and I had been going through all the seasons, watching all the episodes through and through. Now, I was an avid watcher of Smallville back when it was on the WB at the time. It had not yet become the CW, from 2001 to 2011. I enjoyed it immensely. I thought that it was one of the best iterations of Superman's story and origins to date. However, in the later episodes, in the later seasons, it did kind of go through some very wackadoodle episodes, let's just say. So, beginning with season 1, where Clark Kent is 15, and you had Tom Welling, I believe he's 44 now. So he was like in his 20s playing a 15-year-old. How you doing, Ruben? It's good to see you. I'm doing well. And honestly, the way that the show, the pilot took off with Clark getting run over by Lex Luthor and Lex just being obsessed with trying to figure out what really happened when he ran Clark Kent off the bridge. And thank you. And you got this. I think it's the dab. But yes. So also, before Lois Lane ever was a part of Clark's life, he did have a love from Smallville from his years in high school, and that was Lana Lang. Now, the cast of this show, Christina Crook, Tom Welling, Michael Rosenbaum, John Glover, John Schneider, Annette O'Toole. You also had Alison Mack before her tragic fall from grace. Sam Jones III. I'm not reading from a list, folks. I swear to God. I'm literally going off of memory. In later seasons, had Justin Hartley, Cassidy Freeman. Sam Wentworth was the key bad guy in season 8. He was Doomsday. You also had Callum Blue, who played a younger Zod. Or Callum Blue. Who else? You had Alan Richson, who played AC or Aquaman. They called him Orin instead of Arthur Curry. You had Terrence Stamp, who was General Zod in the Christopher Reeve universe, which also Christopher Reeve was in this show too in the earlier seasons, along with Margot Kidder. I mean, this show had so many great actors and actresses in their early stages of their careers. You had the Ashmore twins, Aaron and Sean. You also had David Paetko, you also had Amy Adams. You had so many people in this show. Laura Vandervoort, who played Kara El, or Zor-El. Kara Zor-El. You also had, what's her name? The original Wonder Woman, Linda Carter. You had, hey, woke or not, good to see you. I mean, there were so many people in this show that basically got their start in Smallville, in the show. You also had Paul Wesley and Ian Somerhalder, who went on to go into their own show, The Vampire Diaries, which I'm also watching. They did, for the brief amount of episodes that Paul Wesley was in, he actually played a very good character in Lucas Luthor, an illegitimate child of Lionel Luthor. You got to meet different characters. I mean, Christopher Reeve, obviously, this was during time when he had his accident and he was paralyzed. He played Virgil Swan, who was able to decode the Kryptonian texts and whatnot. Now, one of the things I absolutely loved was there was or the different versions of kryptonite: red kryptonite, blue kryptonite, gold kryptonite, green kryptonite, silver, and gemstone kryptonite, and how they went through all their different abilities and their effects on Clark. Clark's life throughout this series was actually very interesting to see what he could put up with. Now, one of the things I did notice is the second episode of Smallville. He's literally wakes up floating above his bed. Excuse me. And then at the end of, I believe it was season 1, if I remember correctly. Yup, it was the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2 where he's actually in the tornado to rescue Lana. Now, I used to watch Smallville once at my early age, but it was rare to watch it, but has had some great episodes, but I didn't know that Lex Luthor was there in the series. Yeah, Michael Rosenbaum played Lex Luthor. And honestly, this is no joke. I think that Michael Rosenbaum is honestly the best Lex Luthor. He had such range with Lex throughout the series, except that he didn't come back or he left after the end of the 7th season and came back at the very last episode. And so, yeah, because from what I heard, he didn't want to keep shaving his head. Now, honestly, Michael Rosenbaum is great actor from Smallville. A lot of people like to think that Kevin Spacey was the best Lex Luthor or Gene Hackman. Now, while Gene Hackman was a good Lex Luthor and Kevin Spacey held his own, I honestly think that Michael Rosenbaum was, to date, the best Lex Luthor that has been portrayed on screen. Yes, you also have the different voice actors who have portrayed him. A couple of them were actually in this show, because also Michael Rosenbaum also voiced the Flash in the Justice League show. And James Marsden, I believe, voiced Lex Luthor in Superman Doomsday. I mean, you have so many people in this show that just, I could read off all of them, and they're all names that you know. I mean, Kobe Smulders from the MCU, she was in this for a couple episodes. James Marsters, not Marsden, Marsters. Lee Thompson Young, Michael Cassidy, Terrence Stamp, Lucas Grabeel from High School Musical. He was in this as the Superboy clone. That was a clone of Lex Luthor and Clark Kent. That came out in season 10. I knew that Smallville is was a part of some Superman series. Yes, it was his origins. Now, a lot of people, or I have seen some people complain that they should, or calling it Smallville when he was spending most of his time in Metropolis. Well, Smallville, I think Lois Lane, Erica Durance, said it best. And she's like, because she always called Clark Smallville. So yeah, Smallville was always a part of who Clark was. So even though he was now living in Metropolis or commuting to Metropolis and whatnot, Smallville was still a part of him. John or John Snyder playing Jonathan Kent was a stroke of brilliance. Honestly, I think that he did a wonderful job as Jonathan Kent, the person to guide Clark throughout his younger years until his death came, I think, in season 5. Annette O'Toole, who actually played Lana Lang in Superman 3, I believe it was, in the Reeve universe. All these actors did a wonderful job. And honestly, I'm very thankful for them. Christina Crook, who played Lana Lang, she did a wonderful job where she is where she plays a person who is literally torn between her and then later love for Clark, and either it was Whitney or somebody else or Lex, because there was the whole love triangle between Clark, Lana, and Whitney Fordman from high school. Then there was the love triangle between Clark, Lana, and Lex. And then she became her own character. She got into martial arts, and then she later on starred in the Chun-Li Street Fighter movie, which honestly I thought was a pretty good movie for what it was. I like the unrated edition better because it was a little bit more extended and it showed a little bit more brutality in it, which is kind of what Street Fighter it should have. And Christina Crook actually did a very good job in it. And as she did a good job in the show Smallville. Now, as I was rewatching it 20 years later from its debut, or 21 years later, honestly, I now recognize how kind of cheesy the dialogue was. Literally, if a person was to take a shot for all the ironic lines and references and all of the shout outs and whatnot, a person would die of alcohol poisoning before they got halfway through season 1. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm actually saying that they just kept on going with the ironic sayings, faster than locomotives, faster than a speeding bullet, leaping buildings in a single bound. They even brought in the dog, Crypto, but later was known as Shelby because it was juiced up on kryptonite. And I also like how before he realized his Kryptonian origins, they only referred to it as meteor rock. It really laid a lot of depth into the show. Clark had to go through all of his trials and his journey from going from that boy in Smallville who later became the greatest superhero of the DC universe, Superman, and then later got turned crappy in the comics by all the crap that they got going on with the identity politics and nonsense. Now, one thing I do like is that they did during the Crisis of Infinite Earths, during the Arrowverse, they stopped by the Smallville farm. Hey, MJ1, good to see you. Maggie Jetty, good to see you, buddy. And they had Clark Kent, who was Tom Welling, he's older, playing Clark Kent again. I never watched Smallville. You think it's worth a watch as a super fan of Superman? Honestly, yes, woke or not. I think that it is. I think that every person should watch a show to figure it out for themselves, whether they like it or not. And if you are going to watch it, I do suggest you watch all 10 seasons. I got it for a steal on Vudu. I bought it for $50 when it was on sale. And the scratched out price for it was like $600 some odd dollars. But one of the greatest characters in the show is Alison Mack's character, Chloe. Her character had been the best friend of Clark Kent, even though she was madly in love with him in the earlier seasons and still held some affection for him later on, but eventually moved on from that because she knew that she wasn't destined to be with him. Her character has so much growth and greatness in the story that it's just really interesting to see. I like how they, in this universe, had different interpretations of Doomsday, Brainiac, and characters like Darkseid, because Darkseid is the main antagonist at the end of season 10. You have Granny Goodness, you have Desaad, and you have Darkseid with the planet Apocalypse coming hurling at Earth at the end when he finally becomes the hero he was born to be. Clark doesn't learn to control his flight until the last episode, because that was the one last hurdle of his training. He never got flying down. I mean, there were times when he was floating above his bed, like in the second episode of the first season. And there was a time when he had just come back from a little jaunt through time with Brainiac 5 after the Legion of Heroes reprogrammed him. And he was dancing with Lois in the barn, and he suddenly started floating and flying. They have so many great moments in the show that shows that he is on his way to getting there. I mean, I remember back when I was watching it for the first time during its live airing on the WB before it became the CW. And there was the episode, I believe it was 9th season, where Tess Mercer, which was their interpretation of Mrs. Tessmacher, but then later became Lutessa Lena Luthor, played by the brilliant Cassidy Freeman. I mean, she plays that character just so freaking well. I mean, I'm no joke. She played that very well. She played a character who was ruthless, but then later became a very compassionate character. And that is one of all the main characters in these shows, the main characters like Justin Hartley, who played Green Arrow, and Oliver Queen. I love his version of Green Arrow. It was honestly better than the Arrowverse Green Arrow. The Arrowverse Green Arrow, no offense to Amell, it just seemed like it was a ripoff of The Dark Knight, just with bows and arrows and whatnot. I mean, the Arrowverse was great for first few seasons in each of their shows, but it really went downhill when they started getting political and started pushing their identity politics nonsense, where they had to remind a person that a character is gay every 5 seconds. Smallville is, or to basically answer the question that has not been asked by Woke or Not, is Smallville is not woke. There are scenes in there that have women kissing women. There are scenes in there where there is where they deal with immigration, but that is also because they have Martha Kent and Jonathan Kent in the 5th season. Jonathan Kent's running for Senate, and he's running against Lex Luthor. Well, just as Jonathan Kent becomes senator, he then dies of the fated heart attack. I like the Arrowverse shows quite a bit. I did too, for the most part. I liked watching them up to certain seasons. The Flash, I liked all the way up to season 3. After season 3, they ramped up the identity politics and the woke agenda. Arrow went like 5 seasons before it started taking its downhill slide. Legends of Tomorrow did good with the first 2 seasons, and then it just fell off the edge and just started becoming extremely political, which was just very stupid. They pushed away a lot of their fans. Batwoman was never good. Who else? What other shows were there? Anyway, that's the Arrowverse, not the Smallville verse or the Smallverse. Now, one of the things I do like about this version of Darkseid was he's not necessarily a physical being, but rather the Phantom of all phantoms, because the Phantom Zone is also in this. but he is an entity of great power that really doesn't have much of a physical body. So when he is possessing people and you see the Omegas on all their skulls and whatnot, they have Slade Wilson, who is an old man general in the United States military, who becomes, or he actually doesn't say the name Deathstroke, but he says Death's Stroke as a nice little homage. This show has so many homages, so many callbacks, so many hints and whatnot. It just is really great how they did this show and how they put it together. Yes, the later episodes were weird with the Kandorians coming out of a orb that shut down Clark's powers, or was meant to shut his powers down for good. However, he still got them back. They had Julian Sands, who played Jor-El, but they also had Terrence Stamp, who played Jor-El. So there is some things that didn't really make sense. Although Jor-El, or Julian Sands, who played Jor-El, did a wonderful job. I loved Smallville until season 10, and it got too political for my taste and couldn't finish it. But the seasons with Lex were great, and Rosenbaum, to me, is the best Luthor. Exactly, PK. I completely agree. No, I do not agree with the political thing. Yes, politics were a part of the show, but there was no political agenda that they were pushing. There was no Democrats versus Republicans. They only had a thing that was complaining about the Vigilante Registration Act and how Martha, as a senator, at first a state senator, but then became a federal government senator. Honestly, I think that she did a wonderful job as a senator to actually vote against the registration. I love how this show also appealed to the fans and asked the fans to take part in the show. Because when Clark was questioning whether or not he was good enough with the whole VRA thing, the Vigilante Registration Act, how very X-Men of them. Yes, there is that bit of a parallel. Smallville was supposed to be just 4 seasons covering his 4 years of high school. After season 4, they should have renamed it Metropolis. No, I do not agree with that. As I explained earlier in the stream before you came in, Lois calls him Smallville, and Smallville was always a part of Clark Kent. At the end, the episode where he becomes Superman, Jonathan Kent's ghost hands him his suit and tells him, always remember Smallville. And it was Martha Kent who made the suit for him, who made him the suit with the S and the red cape and the blue suit with the red trousers. And it shows that the S doesn't mean Superman. It, in this universe, meant Smallville. Remember Smallville. And also, you see that S in the earlier season. I believe it was the first season when he was doing shop class. He makes a metal version of that S, of the iconic S on his chest. And he's like, I think it's time we update the S for the Smallville Crows. And it's like, oh my gosh, that is just so freaking awesome. I mean, the earlier seasons just had such great chemistry between the actors and actresses. Alison Mack, honestly, like I said, her character was one of the best characters in the show. Is it a shame of what happened to her in real life? How she became part of Nixium or whatever it was called? Yes, it is. But she is serving her time and she is reflecting on her poor decisions. But honestly, her involvement in Smallville was one of the best characters in the show. How she learned, or how she always suspected that there was something different about Clark, but never could put her finger on it until she saw it from one of Clark's girlfriends, played by Sarah Carter and Alicia Baker. Yep, where she showed Chloe who Clark was. And then, even though she later forgets because he asks Jor-El to take Brainiac out of her, and also to erase her memories. Well, once Brainiac goes back into her, she remembers exactly who he is, and the memory still stays with her. Chloe Sullivan, yes, she is indeed a great character. Now, there are some continuity errors. They said that Jor-El created Brainiac, but then they also brought in a character known as Dax Ur, who was a scientist on Krypton, who was the only person who was able to help fix Brainiac and was also the creator of Brainiac. And it's like, okay, now is Brainiac Jor-El's creation, or is Brainiac Dax Ur's creation? You gotta keep the continuity going. But for the most part, the continuity actually did very well. Now, is there problems? Is there objective flaws in the show? Absolutely. What show doesn't have it? But for the most part, you see some great moments in this show. Laura Vandervoort as Kara Zor-El is actually a great example, where she woke up after the dam broke in, I believe, season 4, or was it season 6? It was the season it was the season after Lex and Lana were done, and just Lana played Lex and tried to fake her death and whatnot. I mean, Lex became extremely paranoid and power hungry and also possessive of Lana, where he even cloned her. It was a mindless clone, so there was no sentience in it. But but cloning your wife, yeah, that just reeks of, well, yikes. Let's just leave it at that. There's a Smallville X-Men Evolution crossover fanfic series I've read where Clark becomes Superman sooner because of the miscarriage of Martha's baby. Yes, there was also that one where they managed to actually get pregnant, but because Clark was afraid of his destiny, he ends up blowing up the ship that he came in using a kryptonite key that Lana Luthor fashioned. He didn't know that it was gonna blow the or create a shockwave, but he ended up destroying the ship, which caused the crash that Martha and Jonathan Kent, or them to crash their vehicle, and she ended up losing the baby, which caused him to leaving Smallville and putting on red kryptonite in order to stay out. Or red kryptonite removes your inhibitions, but it also it's basically his way of drugging or being put in a drug-induced haze to kind of stay or not have to face the guilt of what he did, of his decision. Sucks that the miscarriage never got brought up again after the season 3 premiere. Well, true, but one of the things that can be said about the Kents is that they were very compassionate and that they were very forgiving of Clark. They knew that he was destined for greater things, and yes, he made mistakes, but they never blamed him for the miscarriage. She actually says that after he comes back from getting the red kryptonite taken off. You're not, or I'm not, or she tells him, I never blamed you. Hold on a second, folks. And I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyway, greetings, salutations, Pops. Good to see you. Now, going on to getting into the later seasons where Doomsday and the Justice League, because you also had the Flash, or as they called him in this one, Impulse. The actor who played him, let me see if I could find him. Who played Impulse? Let's see here. Did they have him in the casting? Let's see here. He should be in the earlier casting things. Doesn't look like they have him in the main lists. But who played Impulse in Smallville? Kyle Stephen Gellner was Impulse in Smallville. Bartholomew Bart Allen. Yeah. Why is Flash called Impulse? And people actually asked, why is the Flash called Impulse in Smallville? Instead, he was playing Bart Allen. Comic readers will likely know Bart, otherwise known as Impulse, and Barry's grandson from the future. But in Smallville continuity, Gallner's Bart has no ties to Jay Garrick, Barry Allen, or Wally West, aside from a set of fake IDs referencing the previous speedsters. So, yes, they had a different version of the Flash. And who was the actor, or what was the actor's name, though? I think it was Gallner, yeah. Oh. Alrighty. But yeah, when he came into Smallville, the character, or Kyle Gallner, when he actually came into Smallville, they tried very hard to get Batman in Smallville, even had a kid named Adam Knight who was looking for a Lazarus serum to resurrect his parents, but it never made it in. There is a vague reference from Chloe Sullivan in the 10th season, where she is essentially the embodiment of Watchtower. She was helping the heroes and whatnot. And she says, I met a wondrous woman who will throw you for a loop, and a rich playboy who has a lot of high-tech gadgets. So that was basically a reference to Batman and Wonder Woman. But going back to Bart as Impulse, or essentially the Flash, I really do love how they made him a lot faster than Clark when it came to running. AC, Arthur Curry, was a lot faster swimming underwater than Clark was. And I do like how all the heroes had their own ways of being better than Clark. It was really great to see that, because I like at the end of the introductory episode that had Bart in it, where he turns around while they're super speeding and he's running backwards, and he still manages to hold on to a lead on Clark. Then then turns around and just blasts off way faster. And Clark literally stops. He's like, what the And then he smiles because he's realized that there was no way he would have ever caught him. There's just so much great moments in this show. And I'm truly, honestly, this show still holds up. This show still holds up today. 20 years later, this show still holds up today. I mean, yes, do I think that there are problems with it? Absolutely. I honestly thought that the relationship between Lana and Clark, when she comes back in the 8th season, when Clark is just about to kiss Lois, then Lois goes off on some adventure and Clark literally rekindles his romance with Lana. It's like, are you serious right now? Are you freaking serious right now? In the comics, Bart is the fastest Flash. Yes, Barry Allen is indeed the fastest because he literally becomes one with the Speed Force. One with the Force. But anyway, yeah, the rekindling of romance with Lana and Clark, and where Lex Luthor is kept alive by tubes and whatnot. Loved how Aquaman was introduced, and Clark said how much or how faster he is underwater. Yes, Alan Richardson actually plays in Titans, or as some character who is a masked superhero vigilante, but ended up busting up his body too much. And I also learned that they were literally creating an Aquaman show that never made it onto the CW. But it wasn't Alan Richardson who played Aquaman. It was Justin Hartley, who was Green Arrow in Smallverse. And I'm like, what? Smallville seasons 1 through 4, top notch of all time. Some of the later stuff was not as good, but better than the modern nonsense. Yeah, indeed. I will fully agree with you there. It did start lessening in quality, but also still managed to keep people wanting more. Gotta run. I'll add this to my ever-growing list of crap to watch. Take it easy, woke or not. Thank you for stopping in. And the problem with Smallville's showrunners, they couldn't stop worshiping the altar of Clark. Yeah. I mean, when Clark was finally ready to move on, Lana just snaps right back in for Chloe and Jimmy Olsen's wedding, who later was retconned to be Henry James Olsen and not the Jimmy Olsen that we know in the future. That Lois Lane has getting pictures and whatnot. I mean, all the freaking Ashmores are in the show. Even Sean Ashmore played a kid that switched power or absorbed Clark's powers through a meteor rock when he had a meteor rock and Clark got struck by lightning, ended up switching powers with the kid. That was Sean Ashmore, and it's like, oh crap. And then they have Aaron Ashmore. It's like, is nobody noticing this here? Come on now. I know I'm not the only one. I think Lou Diamond Phillips was on that failed Aquaman pilot. Yes, he was. PCAT. And also another character, David Paetko, the actor who was also later in Man of Steel as one of the people, or who actually called Superman for the first time in the show or in the movie Man of Steel, and was also in the that Canadian SWAT team show, and was also in AVP Requiem. He also played in 2 different seasons of Smallville as 2 different characters. They recycled actors every now and then to play different characters. David Paetko was one of them. He played one of Smallville High's football players, where the coach who had a burning touch ended up burning his arm. And then later on, he's playing a cop in Metropolis that's unfortunately caught up in a corrupt cop or a bad cop ring. And he ends up making the right choices. And one of the great things that this show did, and it really does do it well, is that they show that Clark Kent is corruptible. However, he still remains an embodiment of hope, and he always invigorates hope in others. That is one of the greatest things that they did with Smallville. They kept his character not 100% pure. He was flawed, and he needed to be, because he was not yet Superman. But he was also, but they did it in a way that didn't make him any lesser than what he was. I also like how they brought in Zatanna, and how in the 10th season, she gives Clark Clark a bottle of champagne that's charmed so he can get drunk because he can't usually get drunk off of Earth alcohol. So she charms it because he is affected by magic. And when Lana became a witch, she was able to fight him in a crouching tiger, hidden dragon kind of way, which was pretty freaking weird, but still fun to watch. Crouching tiger, hidden Lana. Now, honestly, I do not think that Christina Crook is acting anymore. I think that she actually, or I saw a podcast with that Michael Rosenbaum does on Facebook, or not Facebook, but YouTube, where he talked with Kristen. And I think she's now just living up in Canada with, or because what a lot of people don't realize is while the show took place in Kansas, it was filmed primarily in Canada. The show is Canadian actors, Canadian cast, and whatnot. Once upon a time, Clark didn't need kryptonite to hurt him. He used to be hurt by bazookas and tanks. Yes, there was that one, or there was a history of him where that did hurt him. And one of the things I did not like was that it's only kryptonite stuff that can really hurt him. Magic can affect him and harm him, yes, but it's only kryptonite and Kryptonian beings that can hurt him. By making Doomsday a Kryptonian being, I really didn't like that. I always liked the version of Doomsday that had no origin. They couldn't figure out where he came from. And so that being that just came out of the ground mysteriously from a high-tech prison and beat his way out, had bone spurs around his eyes. They did a wonderful job with Doomsday, with the look of Doomsday. I will tell you that right now. They did a wonderful job with the suit that they had. The bigger actor, the Hispanic stunt guy who played the monster version of Doomsday. That was a great suit, a great look. They even put the spurs near the eyes, but they didn't close the spurs in the eyes, like caging his eyes. Christina Crook is hot and all, but it seems she mostly whispered her lines in Smallville. If that's her, or if that's a her problem or a director problem. Don't know if that's a her problem or a director problem. I'm guessing that's what you meant. Honestly, I don't think that she was more, or she had a very whispered or hushed line delivery. She actually was, or Lana Lang is actually a character that was meek at the beginning, but she still conveyed a more strong and independent woman. Let's just say that. Thoughts on the split personality Doomsday where they had a human-like side to him? Honestly, I think that was one of the dumber moves. I do not like the Kryptonian version of Doomsday. I do not like how he is a Kryptonian creation or a Kryptonian deformity. I disagreed with the Zack Snyder version of Doomsday. I disagreed with the Smallville version of Doomsday. I like a Doomsday that had no origin. Because by him having no origin, you now know that there is some creature out there that is not Kryptonian that could kill Superman or damn near kill him. The final fight between Doomsday, or between the Beast after it was separated with Black Kryptonite from Davis Bloom, I wish that had been longer. I honestly do. Because that was however, I do realize that there are time constraints, but I do feel that they could have devoted a little bit more of the story to that fight. Yes, Clark was getting his ass pummeled by Doomsday and thrown around too. However, I still think that they could have done a little bit more with the fight between them. Should there have at least been a race of Doomsdays? No. that is something I did not agree with either when it came to the DCAU, where Doomsday was also created by Darkseid and then later turned into or created a bunch of Paradooms. That I thought was, I mean, while I thought Justice League Apocalypse War or Dark Apocalypse War was great, I just didn't. I like the originless Doomsday. He is the purest Doomsday. He is the most evil Doomsday ever. This thing was about to kill a baby in the comic and book series of The Death and Life of Superman. It was literally about to pound a baby into oblivion until Superman came in. So Doomsday should be one of a kind. Exactly. Yes, that. Doomsday should be one of a kind. He should not be part of any race. He should just be an unknown creation from an unknown origin. They should never have made him a pre-Kryptonian creature that was cloned several times and killed over and over. I hate that origin. I feel that the lesser you know about certain creatures and certain beings, the more enjoyment you can get out of them. By having Doomsday with no origin, you honestly make him that much more of a threat. Just like the Joker without an origin is more interesting. I hate the Killing Joke, where they made him some sad ass or some sad piece of shit or that tried making it in the or one way or another with the Mafia. I also hate in Batman Mask of the Phantasm, where the Joker's origin was that he was a mobster. What about Lex trying to clone Doomsday to try to control but fails each time? He wasn't, or I think that was also, or cloning him or trying to clone Doomsday, or actually he was trying to clone Superman, was a practical thing that Lex would do. However, I did not, and the one thing I didn't like about that version of Supergirl was that she was created by Luthor in an alternate time or an alternate universe in The Death and Life of Superman. I like how she is a Kryptonian cousin of Kal-El. So yes. And Sam Witwer playing Davis Bloom, he played the character well. He played that character fucking well. With Joker, I personally prefer that he was already a psychotic gangster and the chemicals just made him worse. Kind of like the Super Soldier Serum and the Red Skull. Yeah. Same here, man. Having him be a mobster like the Jack Nicholson Joker. Don't get me wrong, Jack Nicholson's Joker was great. But giving the Joker any sort of origin just makes him relatable, and I don't like relatable when it comes to the Joker. The Joker is supposed to be the antithesis of what Batman is. He is the reason why Batman is who he is. He is the reason why, or he is also a constant reminder of the failures of Batman. And that is why he is also so dangerous, because he can get under Batman's skin. By having him have an origin, you give him a weakness, in my opinion, when it comes to the Joker. But getting back to Smallville, when they had Doomsday, and when he was finally buried under LexCorp thing. Hold on one second, I need to mute. Excuse me. Had to sneeze. And I gotta do. Lovely Sherry, awesome to see you. Thank you for stopping in. It is always a pleasure to see you. I'm reviewing the Smallville series. Now, getting on to season 9. I mean, I know I've been jumping between the seasons and whatnot, but seasons 8, 9, and 10 are the ones that I kind of wanted to focus on. Season 9, I believe, introduced Was it season 9? I believe it was season 9 that introduced the JSA. Come on now. Was it? Yep, it was season 9 that introduced the JSA, the Justice Society of America. And that was a 2-part special that they turned into one episode in the digital purchase. And Michael Shanks was a great Hawkman. Yes, he was. He was a very great Hawkman. I mean, they could have went the PC route and made him Egyptian and whatnot. But you know what? He did great. He was a great freaking Carter Hall. What about the JLA, Junior Lifeguard Association? No, JSA. And I love how they also had Dr. Fate, and how Dr. Fate also gave Martian Manhunter back his powers. Smallville's Hawkman reminded me and my stepdad of Wolverine. Honestly, they could have had him be Wolverine in some weird alternate way of, I'm pretty sure Michael Shanks could have been Wolverine in another life. He just kind of gives off that intense ferocity. But as for Dr. Fate, I absolutely love the character of Dr. Fate in this, because when Clark sees the guy talking to the bag and he uses his X-ray vision, the helmet literally goes like this. It's like it just turns right to him, and because it knew that it was being watched. And then he puts on the Fate helmet later on. He tells Clark about his fate. He tells Lois Lane how important she is to Clark. A lot of people do not understand how Lois in this show, there are some who actually critique the chemistry between Erica Durance and Tom Welling's Clark, or Lois and Clark. Honestly, I like how she dated Oliver Queen first. I like how she went out with Oliver Queen. And yes, a lot of people will say, well, she couldn't stand being with Oliver Queen because of him being a hero. She didn't want to share him with the world. Well, then she has to do the same with Clark, except she understood in a fundamental level. Also, true love is true love. Erica Durance is super hot. Yes, she is. And honestly, I think that Erica Durance did a great Lois Lane as well. When it comes to Lois Lanes, Erica Durance is top 2. Margot Kidder will always be the best in original Lois Lane that I grew up watching. But Erica Durance as Lois Lane is the second, and it's a very close second best. What did you think about how they did the Wonder Twins? I wasn't expecting much, but felt they did a good job translating them into live action. Honestly, yes, the Wonder Twins, David Gallagher, I think or the actor's name is, and what's her name? I can't remember the other one, or the other actor or actress's name. Yes, David Gallagher. Honestly, I thought that they did a great job with those two. And Lois finally finding out about Clark, or knowing his secret, also traveling to the future. Her journey in the show was great. And it's like, how are you not picking up that this is Clark? And why aren't you staying steadfast with the point that it is Clark, you know? But I also love, and I cannot stress this out or stress this any further, but I absolutely love how she waits, or how she continues to wait for him to tell her. Now she's finally ready to give it up, but she also is so happy when he decides to trust her and telling her. And she's like, what took you so long? You know? Because after the episode where after the episode where Brainiac brought him through the future and whatnot, he learns that Lois knows his secret and she was okay with it. So then he had to work up to telling her, or finally breaking the news to her. I also like the Legion ring situation in episode or season 8, where he actually tells her and he outs himself to the world. It doesn't go so well because of shit going on. And Terry Hatcher's character, I think it was Terry Hatcher, or no, it was either Tori Spelling. Tori Spelling being the Water Duchess woman. My stepdad and I believe if they had cast her, Demi Moore would have also been a great Lois Lane. Lois Lane. Maybe in an earlier version of Superman, maybe in like a 90s version of Superman, because Demi Moore, no offense to Demi Moore, she is great, she's hot, she's awesome. But I like how they kept Erica Durance, because Erica Durance was around Tom Welling's age, and she just gave off she was the perfect Lois Lane for Tom Welling's Clark Kent. And how she just continued to fall more and more in love with him, and as the episodes go on, you see that she is absolutely willing to do anything for Clark, including kill Tess Mercer. Because there's the episode where Oliver and Clark get sent to go to the Phantom Zone to try to find out how Slade got back, and she realized that Clark had set she realized that there was a self-destruct. She didn't realize it was Clark that did it, but she realized that there was a self-destruct on the crystal that was going to be destroyed and strand them there. And she pulls a gun on Tess. She's like, that's how much she loves Clark in this. She's like, you got to learn to make sacrifices. Just as he's a hero and makes sacrifices, you also got to make sacrifices too. She's like, no, being the wife of a hero means not accepting defeat. And the way that she looks when she sees him for the first time after he gets back, how she looks like she is just a wreck. In her face, you see the manic or the mania in her eyes, how she is slowly losing herself, and she kept busy for 3 freaking weeks to ensure that she didn't lose her mind, although she was very close to it. That is how much Lois loved Clark. And it showed she portrayed that so freaking well. But yes, in season 10, when he goes to the alternate or the shot or the mirrorverse with Clark Luthor coming through and Lionel Luthor coming through, it just shows that John Glover playing Lionel Luthor absolutely nailed that character down, because he could step into the darker version of himself. He knows the darker version of himself. And Tom Welling can easily play a bad character too. I mean, he plays Cain in, I love how they say the brothers, or there's reference to the brothers Cain and Abel in Smallville, because then he later plays Cain in Lucifer. So it's like, holy shit. My stepdad and I believe that they had cast, I already said that. Lois Dayton Oliver first, I think, was their callback to the DCAU. Superman meets Batman, since they couldn't get Batman. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I think that could be. But Tom Welling playing Red Kryptonite Clark or Clark Luthor or Clark influenced by Kryptonite at all, he does a great job doing it. I mean, you really see just how well he can act with how he handles the different situations in the show. And honestly, Smallville today really, watching it even after 10 years after it ended, or 11 years after it ended, it still holds up. It still holds up. I mean, yes, they had Lex Luthor become president or get elected president in 2018, which was weird, but it still is a great show in that time period. Now, when they went to the Smallville verse again from Crisis of Infinite Earths, I watched that shortly after I watched the last episode of Smallville. I gotta sneeze again. Whew, Darius Munchausen, good to see you. And him coming back in the other, or John Cryer's Lex Luthor. I swear to God, John Cryer is such a weird fucking Lex Luthor. But they brought the Arrowverse to Smallville verse, where in the Arrowverse, Erica Durance is actually Kal-El's mother. And it's like, what? And then she's Lois Lane in Crisis of Infinite Earths. So it's like, what? But one thing that I found to be interesting is the epic conclusion of the Smallville verse is that Clark gave up his powers. And I'm like, it would explain why he aged, or it would explain why he looks a little bit different and older and whatnot. But honestly, I think they did it. He did a great job channeling back into Clark Kent. I mean, when freaking Lex Luthor starts complaining after he throws away the kryptonite and whatnot, he's like, "You are a god. I don't miss these arguments." He's like, "I don't miss these arguments." Or these lectures or whatever. It's just so great. And he's like, which doesn't affect me since I gave up my powers. And then he steps forward and he sees and he realizes that he stepped on a toy car. And he's like, and that is worth any price. And it's like, but did you have to give up your powers to procreate? That is what I didn't understand, is why he gave up his powers. Was it simply to start a family, or was it because he didn't want his family to be different? I will always wonder that. And that, you know what? That's due to the Arrowverse's decisions for the Crisis of Infinite Earths. But I also like how Erica Durance was able to pop right back into the Lois Lane and play her one last time as well. The episode, or the final episode, the finale, or the series finale, where he finally becomes Superman, is great, but I really do wish they had showed him more in the suit. I mean, I'm always going to wonder why they did not give him or show him more in the suit, because it would have been great to have seen him in the suit more. I didn't like the Smallville thing in Crisis. I feel he was in the middle of what Superman did in Superman 2, giving up his powers only to be reminded of why he has them, and then nothing. He just gives up. Well, it honestly doesn't matter, because maybe he would have got his powers back again. Who knows? But we never will, because all the universes were merged into one, and some of them ended, including the Smallville verse. Vanja, good to see you. And it's going good. I'm just reviewing Smallville. As for Smallville's final episode, Crisis on Infinite Earths, yes, Mega Jetty, Smallville was infinitely better. Or Smallville's final episode was infinitely better. And while it was a nice little nostalgic moment to go back to Smallville to see Tom Welling and Erica Durance back as Lois and Clark, it didn't make sense for him to give up his powers. I mean, yes, he always wanted to be normal. There was always that yearning to want to be normal, but he accepted his Kryptonian lineage, and he accepted his destiny at the end of Smallville. So it really honestly doesn't make sense why he would give it up. Tom Welling didn't want to wear the suit. he wanted to show, or the show to stay true to itself. So that explains why. And you know what? Honestly, that is a good choice because it makes sense. It's Smallville. It's before he became Superman. So yes, honestly, but even when they showed the suit when he finally got into it, they could have shown it a little bit more clearer. No spoilers, please. Then, no, I haven't rated it yet, but I have been discussing spoilers throughout this entire thing. Oh, to hell with that. No tights, no flights rule. But I will actually start to get to it because honestly, objectively speaking, this is objectively for the whole series of Smallville. I will now get into the scoring. Objectively speaking, without bias, without putting in my own personal opinions, the writing could have been a lot higher steps up. The writing just could have been a lot better. There were some acting that could have been easily a lot better. Some of the special effects in the earlier episodes and the earlier seasons really date the show. So yes, there are issues. However, there are some moments in the show that really do work wonderfully. So objectively, out of 10, I will give the entire series of Smallville a 7 out of 10 because there was things that they could have done a little bit better, yet they chose, or however, there was also things that they could have done much worse too, but there are things that could have been improved. Subjectively, I give it about a 9. There are things that I thought could have been done better. I didn't like how Doomsday was Kryptonian. I never will. That is one of my biggest problems with Smallville bringing in. Also, you brought in Doomsday, the one person who can kill Superman, before he became Superman. That will never make sense to me. So, yes, that is also another reason, objectively, why it didn't make sense. Number one issue, Lana not being a vegetable after season 1 with all the head bumps. Yeah. Indeed. But yeah, it's 9 out of 10 subjectively. I really do love the show. I mean, with warts and all. But having Doomsday in it, it really shouldn't have been done. It really shouldn't have been done. You shouldn't have brought Doomsday into Smallville. It was portrayed well. The story kind of worked well, but I don't like Kryptonian Doomsday. As for showgoer or moviegoer, where I'm not basing it on or deconstructing it, I'm simply basing it on entertainment value. This show is about an 8 to 9 or a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. There are some episodes that are good filler. There are certain episodes that I'm like, gosh, I'm bored. But for the most part, the series worked. And it still works today. And honestly, I want to thank everybody who was a part of Smallville, all the cast, all the crew. Yes, even Alison Mack, who in real life is now in prison right now because of her poor life choices. But her character, Chloe Sullivan, was truly a great character. I like Kristen Crook's Lana Lang, although I think that they could have moved on with that relationship and never rekindled it back in season 8. Season 8 was where it all went weird. It was, in fact, the weakest season. But for the most part, Smallville does work. It shows that Clark Kent was an unwavering icon of hope, and he later became the embodiment of hope when he became Superman. I mean, I understand why all the head bumps to protect Clark's secret identity. Yeah, that was another objective flaw was they got knocked out way too easily. Clark's identity when he's being a hero, but seriously, with all the head bumps added up, Clark's friends should be dead from concussions. Yeah, part of the discussion, but also a bit of a side. Have you watched Superman and Lois? No, I have not. I was thinking about doing it, but I do not want to watch any of the Arrowverse or anything from CW anymore. I know that the first season was not woke and didn't do any identity politics, but the second season is starting to delve into it unnecessarily, and I think that they shouldn't even, or I'm not even going to bother with it. But anyway, folks, I am going to end it here. To all the actors and actresses, thank you guys so much for 10 great seasons of that show. Annette O'Toole, who played Lana when she was younger, only to play Martha Kent in the series, was a perfect choice. Jonathan Snyder as Jonathan Kent, perfect freaking choice. They even had the Dukes of Hazzard episode in the show, where what's his name, who played in the Dukes of Hazzard with Schneider, came in as the person who was the senator. And they even did some driving, like they were driving the General Lee. Why no CW? I liked the Arrowverse early on, Vanja, but I did not. Yeah, Tom Wopat. I did not like I just really didn't like how they kept on putting identity politics and political stupidity in it. Superman and Lois is surprisingly good. Season 2 has Lois' sister Lucy. Yes. Oh, Michael Ironside as, I do want to say that Michael Ironside as General Lane was a great touch. Sister Lucy having been raped into a cult. I think that is a subtle reference to the actress behind Chloe. Whether it be or not, and if that is indeed the case, I think that they should, that's not something that I would condone. But yes, thank you, Vanja, for staying in or for dropping by. Thank you to all the people who stopped in. PCAT, Vanja, Mega Jetty, who else? Lovely Sherry. Who else? Darius Munchausen. And who else? Woke or Not, Pops. Thank you to all of you guys for stopping in. And Ruben Thomas, thank you for stopping in. Thank you to all who stopped in, folks. And I really did enjoy this show. Good to reminisce about a fun show. Yes, it is indeed. And thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned within the next 2 weeks. I will have a special mystery review coming soon. Next week's mystery review is still on schedule. The hints are 2 versions of the film and Reunion, with a bonus hint, Mother. If you can guess it, awesome. If you can't, well, think about it. Anyway, that will be same schedule, Tuesday next week. And I'll continue to try to get content out. But anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you again, Mega Jetty, for stopping into the chat. Anyway, folks, y'all know the drill. BVS. No, that's not it. But anyway, folks, thank you so much for stopping in. Y'all know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What did you think of Smallville? Did you like it? Did you not? What was your favorite season? What was your favorite episodes? What was your favorite parts? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section below, folks. This has been Orange Hat Reviews. Stay home.